The Galactic Confederation stood as a testament to cooperation. 27 species from across the stars had built something remarkable over thousands of years, a peaceful alliance where technology and culture flowed freely between worlds. Admiral Tejo's scales reflected the soft blue light of the council chamber as he addressed the gathered representatives. His long fingers tapped nervously on the podium. "The boundary remains impenetrable," he said. "We've sent 17 probes in the past month. None returned. Whatever exists beyond that point in space, it does not welcome our presence." Counselor Jaiwa shifted her forearmed form forward in her seat. "Could it be a natural phenomenon? A distortion in spacetime?" The Admiral shook his head. "Natural barriers don't form perfect borders that stretch precisely along designated coordinates. This was created by someone. Or something." The chamber filled with uneasy murmurs. The Confederation had mapped nearly 60% of the galaxy over millennia of exploration. The idea of an unknown force powerful enough to block their path was disturbing. "We should assemble an armed expedition," suggested Representative Dojin, his metallic skin glinting as he stood. "Perhaps a show of strength." He was interrupted by the chamber doors sliding open. A junior communications officer named Nari rushed in, her feathered crest fully extended in excitement. "Admirals! Counselors! A ship has emerged from the restricted zone." The council chamber emptied quickly as officials rushed to the observation deck. There, hanging against the backdrop of stars, was a vessel unlike any in their records. Sleek and silver, it seemed almost to absorb the light around it rather than reflect it. "They're transmitting a signal," Nari reported. "Audio and visual, compatible with our systems." "Put it through," ordered Tejo. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a being that appeared surprisingly ordinary. Captain Dongwon had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a single head with forward-facing eyes. His skin was smooth and pale, his posture relaxed but confident. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Confederation," he said in perfect standard speech. "We are humans from beyond the boundary you've recently been investigating. We come in peace and friendship." "You speak our language," Tejo observed, suspicion evident in his voice. Dongwon smiled. "We speak all your languages. We've been observing the Confederation for some time. Your development has been fascinating." "How long is some time?" asked Jaiwu. "We've monitored your civilization since its founding," Dongwon replied casually. "Roughly 2,300 of your standard years." The revelation stunned the gathered officials. The humans had been watching them for centuries, unknown and unseen. 3 days later, the first official diplomatic meeting took place aboard the Confederation's flagship. Captain Dongwon arrived with 3 other humans. All similar in appearance but with slight variations in skin tone and facial features. They brought gifts, advanced medical technology, efficient energy converters, and star charts for regions the Confederation had yet to explore. "We propose regular trade," Dongwon explained as they sat around the conference table. "Cultural exchange. Diplomatic relations. We welcome interaction with the species of the Confederation." "And visits to human space?" asked Ambassador Hyunjin, her tail swishing with barely contained curiosity. "Scientific expeditions? Cultural missions?" For the first time, Dongwon's pleasant expression faltered. "I'm afraid that won't be possible. The boundary remains. No non-human vessels or personnel may cross it under any circumstances." "That seems unbalanced," Tejo noted. "You may visit us freely, but we cannot visit you?" "Those are our terms," another human named Sionha said firmly. "They are not negotiable." That evening, after the humans had returned to their ship, young researcher Min Jae cornered Admiral Tejo in the ship's garden. "There's something they're not telling us," she insisted. "Why maintain such a border if they wish for friendly relations?" Tejo sighed. "Perhaps they are protecting themselves from us." "Or protecting us from something within their territory," Min Jae suggested. News of human contact spread quickly throughout Confederation space. Most species welcomed the newcomers with curiosity and excitement. Trade flourished. Human diplomats appeared at Confederation outposts, always friendly, always knowledgeable, and always carefully avoiding certain questions. The boundary remained, an invisible line across the stars that no Confederation ship could cross. At night, young Confederation citizens would sometimes look up at the stars and wonder what lay beyond human space, and why every human they met seemed to carry a shadow behind their smiles, as if they knew something the rest of the galaxy was better off not knowing. 200 years passed since first contact with humans. The Galactic Confederation grew accustomed to their presence. Human traders became common at spaceports. Human diplomats attended important meetings. Human technology improved life across many worlds. Yet one thing never changed: the boundary remained. Ambassador Hyunjin stood at the viewport of his private office, watching a human merchant ship dock at the station. After 30 years as the Confederation's chief diplomat to humans, he had learned much about them. They laughed, loved, argued, and dreamed like many species. But they never, ever discussed what lay beyond their borders. "Another data request denied," said Myung as she entered the office. His assistant placed a tablet on his desk with a frustrated sigh. The humans cite security protocols again. Hyunjin turned from the window. Which question bothered them this time? "We asked about their population centers. Basic demographics. Information every other species shares freely. And yet we continue to grant them full access to our worlds," Hyunjin said quietly. He had once been excited about human relations. Now, after decades of one-sided exchange, his patience wore thin. That evening, Hyunjin met with Captain Daehoon of the science vessel Distant Horizon. They sat in a private room at the back of a busy restaurant where the noise would cover their conversation. "The route is planned," Daehoon whispered. "We'll approach the boundary while studying a nearby nebula. If questioned later, we simply drifted off course." "The Council cannot know," Hyunjin warned. "This is between us. My crew is loyal. They share our curiosity." Daehoon leaned forward. "Don't you find it strange? 2 centuries of friendship and not one of us has seen a human homeworld." Hyunjin nodded slowly. "Be careful, old friend. Record everything." 3 weeks later, the Distant Horizon approached the boundary. On board, the crew worked with nervous energy. They were making history, the first Confederation ship to intentionally cross into human space. "Boundary in visual range," reported Science Officer Jisoo. "Sensors show no physical barrier, but there's some kind of energy field." Captain Daehoon settled into his command chair. "Proceed as planned. Minimal power. Drift approach." The ship edged closer to the invisible line. Instruments flickered as they touched the boundary's edge. For a moment, resistance pushed against their hull. Then, suddenly, they slipped through. "We did it!" Jisoo exclaimed. "We're in human space." Their celebration lasted exactly 6 minutes. Then the sensors screamed warnings. A massive ship appeared from nowhere, dwarfing the Distant Horizon. It wasn't like the human vessels they knew. This one seemed built for war. Before Daehoon could order a retreat, their engines shut down. Communications went silent. The last thing the captain saw was a blinding white light filling the bridge. The Distant Horizon vanished without a trace. At Confederation headquarters, 17 days passed without word. Search teams found nothing. Hyunjin couldn't sleep, crushed by guilt for his role in the mission. On the 18th day, every communication device in the Confederation headquarters activated simultaneously. The same message appeared on all screens. "Consider this your only warning. The border exists for your protection." That night, as Hyunjin sat alone in his quarters contemplating resignation, his door chimed. Outside stood Elder Do-hyun, one of the oldest living beings in the Confederation. The ancient Suri rarely left their homeworld anymore. Their presence here meant something important. "May I enter?" the elder asked, voice crackling with age. Hyunjin quickly ushered him in. "This is an unexpected honor. I came when I heard about the Distant Horizon." Elder Do-hyun settled his frail body into a chair. You have awakened old ghosts, Ambassador.
What do you mean? The elder's eyes clouded with memory.
The history we teach is incomplete. When the Confederation formed, there were 36 founding species, not 27.
Hyunjin stared in shock. What happened to the others?
They discovered the boundary before humans made contact. They crossed it despite warnings. Elder Do-Hyen's voice dropped to a whisper.
Within one generation, all 9 species had vanished from the galaxy.
Not through war or disease. They simply ceased to exist. That's impossible, Hyunjin protested.
Entire civilizations don't just disappear.
They do when they learn things they weren't prepared to know. Elder Do-Hyen reached into his robes and removed an ancient data crystal.
This contains the only surviving records. The council ordered all other copies destroyed.
As the elder rose to leave, he placed one gnarled hand on Hyunjin's shoulder. The humans are not our enemies, Ambassador. But what they guard against might be. Remember, some boundaries exist for a reason. Alone again, Hyunjin stared at the small crystal in his palm.
Outside his window, stars twinkled peacefully.
Somewhere among them, the human border stood firm, not to keep the Confederation out, he now suspected, but to keep something else in. The meeting took place in an abandoned mining facility on a small moon. Ambassador Hyunjin had chosen this location for its isolation, no monitoring devices, no prying eyes. The 5 beings who joined him represented different species, each chosen for their skills and, more importantly, their discretion. What I'm proposing is unauthorized and dangerous, Hyunjin told them as they sat in the dim light of the control room. If you wish to leave now, there will be no consequences.
No one moved.
Captain Sungo, a veteran pilot with 30 years of experience, leaned forward.
The Phantom is ready.
I've never flown a ship like her before, completely automated stealth systems, experimental cloaking technology.
If anything can cross that border undetected, she can.
And if we're caught, asked Unju, the engineer who had secretly modified the ship for this mission. Her 4-fingered hands nervously adjusted her atmosphere suit. The Confederation will deny all knowledge of our actions, Hyunjin replied.
We'll be on our own. Scientist Ji-hun tapped at a portable display.
According to the data from Elder Do-Hyen's crystal, the 9 lost species all crossed at different points along the boundary.
I've identified a section where the energy patterns are weaker.
Security Chief Kaibum remained silent throughout most of the discussion, his scales darkening with concern. Only when they prepared to leave did he speak. I've fought in 3 border conflicts, he said quietly. I've seen death up close. Whatever waits beyond that boundary made an entire species disappear without a trace.
Are we certain this knowledge is worth the risk? Hyunjin met his gaze.
If we don't learn the truth, we'll forever live in fear of shadows.
3 days later, the Phantom approached the boundary.
The small craft, barely larger than a personal transport, had been painted with light-absorbing materials. Its energy signature was disguised to mimic background radiation. Boundary and range, Ji-hun reported from the sensor station.
Energy field detected, just as before. Active countermeasures, ordered Sungo. Unju activated the systems she had designed.
Disruption field engaged. We should appear as nothing more than a small spatial anomaly. The Phantom slowed as it touched the boundary. For a moment, the ship shuddered. Warning lights flashed across the control panels. Then, with a final tremor, they pushed through.
We're in, Sungo whispered.
No one spoke for several minutes, each lost in the realization of what they had accomplished.
The first days of exploration were uneventful. They traveled deeper into human territory, recording everything.
Their instruments detected thousands of communication signals, but the encryption was beyond their technology. On the 4th day, they discovered the first megastructure.
That can't be real, Unju breathed as they stared at the viewscreen.
Before them, a star had been completely encased in an enormous sphere of interlocking panels. Energy readings showed it capturing 100% of the star's output. The material composition is unknown, Ji-hun reported. Nothing in our database matches it. They documented 3 more such structures over the next 2 days. Then they found the disassembled planet. They're breaking it down systematically, Ji-hun explained as they observed from a safe distance. Those machines are separating elements, processing raw materials. But for what purpose? Sung-go wondered. Their answer came on the 7th day. Their sensors detected a massive ship approaching, or at least, they thought it was a ship. Parts of it seemed to fade in and out of visibility, as if it existed partially in another dimension. Evasive action, Kaibum ordered, but Sung-go shook his head. They've locked onto us somehow. We can't outrun them. The communication system activated without anyone touching it. On the screen appeared a figure that challenged their understanding of human. It had a basic humanoid shape, but its skin shimmered with what looked like circuitry. Parts of its body were transparent, revealing complex machinery merged with organic tissue. Its eyes glowed with an inner light. You have violated the accord, it said in a voice that seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their minds. You will be escorted to boundary control. As they were led deeper into human space, they passed more wonders and terrors. Planets transformed into vast computing arrays. Moon-sized vessels that moved without engines. And, most disturbing of all, tears in the very fabric of space, swirling vortexes of energy that hurt to look upon. I understand now, Hyunjin said softly. The boundary isn't to keep us out. It's to protect us from what's in here. Kaibum moved to stand beside him at the viewport. And from what they've become. The Phantom continued its escorted journey toward a distant structure that pulsed with energy like a heartbeat. None of them spoke. They had wanted truth. Now they feared what other truths awaited them. The facility orbited a neutron star, its structure a perfect ring of gleaming metal 20 kilometers in diameter. As the Phantom approached, Hyunjin noticed strange patterns moving across its surface, not decorations, but complex flowing symbols that seemed to change as he watched. Their ship docked automatically in a bay large enough to hold a Confederation battlecruiser. When the airlock opened, a human waited for them. Unlike their captor, this one appeared completely normal, a middle-aged man with dark hair and eyes that reflected the blue lighting of the dock. I am Commander Juno, he said in perfect Confederation standard. Please follow me. They walked silently through corridors that sometimes seemed to shift when not directly observed. Unju touched a wall and quickly pulled her hand back. It's warm, she whispered. And I think it moved when I touched it. Juno led them to a chamber with a large oval table. Please sit. I know you have questions. Are we prisoners? Kaibum asked bluntly. You are guests who entered without invitation, Juno replied. There is a difference. Hyunjin stepped forward. What gives you the right to block off vast sections of the galaxy? The cosmos belongs to everyone. Does it? Juno's expression remained neutral. Follow me. There is something you should see. They walked to another section of the facility. A large window revealed a sight that made little sense at first, a tear in space itself, swirling with colors that hurt to look upon. What is that? Ji-hun asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. A dimensional rift, Juno said. One of thousands we maintain and monitor. Hyunjin felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Maintain? You created these? Not intentionally. Juno sighed deeply. Let me explain. 5,000 years ago, humanity discovered technologies that allowed us to transcend our physical limitations. We evolved quickly, too quickly. Images appeared in the air before them, showing human history. Their first primitive spacecraft. Their expansion through their home system. Then a great leap forward, the discovery of technologies that let them modify their own bodies and minds. We merged with our machines, Juno continued. We extended our consciousness. We became something new. But in our rapid advancement, we made mistakes. The images changed, showing experiments with energy fields and quantum mechanics. A catastrophic accident. A tear in reality. We opened doorways that should have remained closed, Juno said quietly.
And things noticed us.
Ancient things that existed between dimensions, beyond normal space. The display showed worlds changing and transformed by impossible geometries, populations driven to madness by what they had witnessed.
Before humanity achieved space travel, other guardians stood watch against these entities, Juno explained. They failed. Their civilizations fell. We discovered their ruins and their warnings too late. Sungo leaned forward. What does this have to do with the boundary? Everything.
Juno waved his hand, and the display changed again.
The boundary is a containment system. Not to keep you out, but to keep what we deal with away from you. The images showed human ships positioning massive devices along what they now recognized as the border. Energy fields activating. Rifts being sealed or contained.
9 species from your confederation once crossed our borders despite warnings, Juno said.
Their minds couldn't comprehend what they found here. The madness spread throughout their populations like a virus. You destroyed them, Kaibum whispered.
We contained the damage, Juno corrected. When reason and communication failed, when the infection of madness threatened to spread beyond their worlds, we removed them from the time stream. They exist in a separate reality now, safe but apart.
Hyunjin felt his heart pounding. Why tell us this? Why not simply remove us as well? Because we are tired of being feared, Juno said simply. Because after thousands of years of watching, we believe the Confederation might be ready to understand. At least, the 5 of you might be. Juno stood and walked to the window overlooking the rift. You have a choice now. Return to the Confederation with enough knowledge to explain why the boundary must be respected, but not enough to endanger your minds. Or stay, learn everything, and help us maintain the watch. Help you how? Unju asked. Some of us wish to remember what it was like to be as we once were, Juno replied. Others believe fresh perspectives might help us find better solutions. And some simply miss connection with other species. Jihun studied the rift with fascination. If we choose to stay, can we ever return? No, Juno said. The knowledge you would gain would make you incompatible with your former lives. You would become something between what you are and what we have become. Hyunjin looked at his companions, seeing the weight of the decision in their eyes. They had come seeking truth. Now they understood why some truths came with warnings. How long do we have to decide? He asked. Until morning, Juno replied. Though for beings like us, time has become flexible. Outside the window, the rift pulsed as if alive, a reminder of what waited beyond understanding and why some boundaries existed for a reason. The Phantom returned to Confederation space 23 days after crossing the boundary. Observation stations recorded its approach, noting that the small vessel showed signs of damage. When it docked at Central Station, only Ambassador Hyunjin and Captain Sungo walked off the ship. The others had stayed behind. To study. To understand. To help, was all Hyunjin would say when questioned about their fate. His eyes now carried a distant look, as if part of him remained beyond the boundary. The council demanded a full report. In a closed session that lasted 14 hours, Hyunjin shared what he could, carefully edited versions of what he had learned. He spoke of humans who had evolved beyond their original form. He mentioned ancient dangers that humanity contained. He avoided details that might plant dangerous seeds in curious minds. The boundary exists for our protection, he concluded. Not from humans, but from what they guard against. 1 month later, the council created a new position, High Protector of the Boundary. Ambassador Hyunjin was the only candidate considered. His once ambitious eyes now carried a haunted depth that silenced even his former critics. I accept this duty, he said at the appointment ceremony, with the understanding that it is the most important task facing our Confederation. Under his guidance, new protocols spread throughout Confederation space. Border patrols changed their mission from testing the boundary to protecting it. Educational programs taught young citizens about respecting the limits of exploration. A simple phrase became common knowledge across 27 worlds: the border exists for a reason. Captain Sungo took command of the first Boundary Protection Fleet.
The ships never approached the actual border, they simply ensured no one else did. Sometimes, late at night in his quarters, Sungo would study the stars and think of Jihun, Unju, and Kaibum. He wondered what they had become in the year since they chose to remain. I hope they found answers worth the price, he often whispered to himself. 5 years after the Phantom's journey, a civil war erupted between two Confederation member species. As the conflict threatened to spread, observers noted unusual energy signatures near the battle zones, brief flashes matching human vessels, appearing and disappearing without engaging. When the war suddenly ended, both sides agreeing to peace with surprising speed, rumors spread of strange dreams that had come to leaders on both sides. Dreams of vast cosmic horrors that made their differences seem meaningless by comparison. Hyunjin, when asked about these reports, simply nodded and said, "They watch. They always have." Over decades, patterns emerged. During natural disasters, human ships sometimes appeared briefly near affected worlds, never intervening directly but always observing. When new species were discovered and evaluated for Confederation membership, sensor arrays occasionally detected energy signatures consistent with human technology. The humans themselves continued trade and diplomatic relations as before. They never mentioned the expedition that had crossed their border. They never spoke of the crew members who stayed behind. But sometimes, human diplomats would seek out Hyunjin or Sungo for private conversations that left both sides looking somehow relieved. 50 years passed. Hyunjin, now in his final years, trained his replacement as High Protector, a young diplomat named Gio who had shown the rare combination of curiosity and restraint needed for the role. "There will be times," he told her during their last meeting, "when you will want to know more. When the mystery of what lies beyond human space will burn in your mind. In those moments, remember what I tell you now, some knowledge comes at too high a cost." He pressed a small data crystal into her hand. "This contains what I learned, what I can safely share. Watch it alone. Then decide if you wish to continue as High Protector." After Hyunjin's passing, memorial services were held across Confederation space. Surprisingly, a delegation of humans attended, led by an official who looked remarkably like Commander Juno from the Boundary Facility. When offered condolences for the loss of a respected diplomat, the human smiled faintly. "Nothing is truly lost," he said cryptically. "Some patterns continue in ways you might not recognize." Centuries later, the Confederation had expanded to include 40 species. Young cadets trained at the academy listened to lectures about the boundary with a mixture of respect and wonder. On graduation day, the most promising students were taken to observation posts along the edge of human space. There, they would stand in silence, watching distant stars flicker with strange lights and unknown energies. Their instructors would tell them the same story that had been passed down for generations. Some boundaries protect us from others. This boundary protects us from ourselves, from knowledge we are not ready to bear. Be grateful for those who stand eternal watch, carrying burdens we cannot imagine. Beyond the observation windows, the stars continued their silent dance along the edge of human space, beautiful, mysterious, and forever beyond reach. And sometimes, if the young cadets watched long enough, they might glimpse the silhouette of ships moving against the darkness, guardians at the galaxy's edge.